Welcome to PSMP Pro Notes, where we simplify community medicine for easy learning. Whether you're just starting or need a quick refresher, we've got you covered with clear and engaging content. Let's get started. Hit subscribe and the bell icon for more content, and check the description for notes between a disease, outcome, and specific exposures, risk factors. Case control studies are often used when the disease in question is rare or when it's difficult to follow a large group of individuals over time, as is done in a cohort study. Today, we'll look at how the study design works, its advantages, challenges, and the important biases to be aware of. What is a case control study? A case control study involves two distinct groups. Cases, these are individuals who have the disease or condition you are studying. Controls, these are individuals who do not have the disease or condition, but are similar to the cases in terms of demographic characteristics, such as age, sex, and socioeconomic status. The primary goal is to compare the exposure history between these two groups. In simple terms, we are trying to understand if those who have the disease, cases, are more likely to have been exposed to a particular risk factor compared to those who do not have the disease, controls. For example, imagine you're studying the link between smoking and lung cancer. Your cases would be individuals diagnosed with lung cancer, while your controls would be individuals without lung cancer. You would then compare the smoking history between the two groups to see if smokers are more likely to develop lung cancer. Why is it called a retrospective study? Case control studies are called retrospective because we are looking back in time. In these studies, researchers start with the outcome, disease, and trace back to see what exposures occurred before the disease was diagnosed. This is in contrast to a cohort study, which is prospective, starting with a group of people who are initially healthy and following them over time to see if they develop the disease. In a case control study, since the data is collected after the disease has occurred, it gives us a snapshot of the past, which can sometimes lead to certain biases, something we'll discuss later. Components of a case control study. Let's break down the key steps involved in conducting a case control study. 1. Selection of cases and controls. Cases. These are the individuals who already have the disease or condition you're studying. The cases must be diagnosed accurately based on certain diagnostic criteria. For example, for a cancer, matching is a technique used in case control studies to ensure that the cases and controls are similar with respect to certain variables like age, gender, or occupation, which may affect the outcome. If you're studying lung cancer, you may match the cases with controls based on smoking history, age, and sex to control for those variables that could confound the results. The idea behind matching is to isolate the effect of the exposure, swinging from smoking, on the disease outcome without interference from other confounding factors. For instance, you may match cases and controls by age so that you're comparing people of similar ages, ensuring that age differences aren't driving the results. 3. Exposure measurement. In a case control study, the key factor is how we measure exposure. The exposure refers to any factor you believe might increase the risk of the disease. This could include behaviors like smoking, environmental factors like air pollution, or genetic fact. Bias in case control studies. Bias is an important issue to be aware of when conducting case control studies. There are several types of bias that can affect the validity of results. Let's go through a few of the most common ones. 1. Selection bias. Selection bias occurs when the cases and controls are not representative of the general population. For instance, if you're studying cancer and you select your cases from a cancer hospital, but your controls are taken from the general population, your results may be skewed because the hospital sample may not represent the broader group of people with cancer. 2. Recall bias. Recall bias happens when there is a difference in how well cases and controls remember their past exposures. For example, people with lung cancer cases may be more likely to remember their smoking habits and report them in detail compared to healthy controls, leading to an overestimation of the association between smoking and lung cancer. 3. Confounding bias. Confounding occurs when a third variable is associated with both the disease and the exposure, making it appear that the exposure is linked to the disease when it might not be. For instance, if you are studying the relationship between alcohol consumption and liver disease, age and gender might confound the results because older adults and men may have higher rates of liver disease. 4. Bergson's bias. This happens when cases are selected from a hospital or healthcare setting, and controls are selected from the general population. The cases might be more severe, and this can make the findings biased. For example, cancer patients from a hospital may be more likely to have other health issues, which may not be representative of the general population. Advantages of case control studies. Case control studies have several advantages. Quick and cost-effective. They are much quicker and cheaper than other study designs, like cohort studies, especially when studying rare diseases. Useful for rare diseases. If you are studying a rare disease, a case control study allows you to focus specifically on the cases, which might be hard to find in a cohort study that follows a large population over time. Can assess multiple exposures. You can investigate multiple potential risk factors for a disease simultaneously. For example, you might explore whether smoking, alcohol consumption, and diet are all associated with lung cancer. No need for follow-up. Since the disease has already occurred, there's no need to follow participants for long periods, as you would in a cohort study. Disadvantages of case control studies. But, like any study design, case control studies come with some limitations. Recall bias. As we discussed earlier, the reliance on participants' memory can lead to inaccuracies in reporting exposure. Selection bias. If cases and controls are not appropriately selected, the study findings may not be generalizable. Cannot measure incidence. Case control studies cannot measure the incidence or the rate of new cases because they start after the disease has occurred. Reverse causality. It's harder to determine whether the exposure caused the disease or the disease led to the exposure.